What's up, Sooner fans? Welcome to a little YouTube live pregame. Kickoff's about an hour away. The Palace on the Prairie, OU SMU. Excited to get this game kicked off, guys. I know this is been a lot of college football already today, but this is one that OU fans should be excited about. A matchup that's going to probably test them a little bit, I think, and ready to get after it.
Yeah, George Stoy and Eddie Radosevich on Twitter have both tweeted that Drake Stoops is, in fact, going through warm-ups. So that's a good sign in the right direction for Drake Stoops being able to play. Again, that doesn't mean fully that he's going to play because you had guys like R. Mason Thomas and Gavin Sawchuk go through warm-ups last week and get held out, but certainly a good sign for that.
Yeah, also, and as you're watching this, drop your keys to the game in the comments. That'd be awesome. Biggest key to the game. What are your thoughts on that? Just watching football today. I mean, Big 12 had such a bad week last week. They've actually looked better today. I mean, Baylor should have beat Utah just kind of near the end of the game, and their quarterback is just, their quarterback's injured, so the other guy was playing, making his first start. He just didn't do well down the stretch. So, but Big 12 looking a little bit better today.
Yeah, and what Brody mentioned about Drake Stoops going through warm-ups, that's a huge sign. I mean, we heard it was the AC joint. Never really got a description as far as level of injury on that AC joint because there's different levels in the AC.
Well, they said he could have played return last week, so that was good.
Right. I mean, that's what they said. But Brian's biggest key, score more points in SMU. Hey, Brian, I remember former SMU Mustang, Eric Dickerson, who used to be a sideline reporter, used to use that exact phrase. I thought that was always funny when he was down there on the sideline doing that. But, yeah, I think if you heard Kel Gundy earlier, guys, on the radio, he picked OU 51-13. He's in attendance tonight. He knows things behind as far as what's going on in this OU team. And for him to pick 51 points and to hold him to 13, I think speaks volumes as far as what he thinks on this team. I think one thing that I want to see is if Deshaun McCullough plays. Last we heard, he was not in his boot walking into the stadium today. So that's a good sign as well that he's not in a boot. Means that was probably precautionary last week, right?
Yeah, it was probably precautionary, but ankle sprain. I'm not sure he will play, but odds are, not in a boot, that's certainly a good sign.
Yeah, it sounds like, just from the stuff I've seen on Twitter and stuff all day, it sounds like the tailgating, the crowd is obviously a lot better than last week. And we talked about this being a 5 o'clock kickoff compared to 11 a.m. kickoff makes a big difference. You got all day to kind of build up there and tailgate and have fun instead of getting there at 8 or 9 and then rushing to your seat. So I think that the atmosphere is going to be lit tonight. It's going to be exciting. A lot of visitors there, as we talked about in our video last night, unofficial and some official. I know Josh Asosa is on an official visit. I saw on Twitter. So good things, man.
You can see the link there. Brody just put in Sooner Surge Unlimited, joining up on that, being part of the Discord server. Also tonight, about 25 minutes after the final buzzer goes off, we will be on a post-game live to get your thoughts on the game. We'll be able to chat about what happened and maybe break it down and get some thoughts as far as that. So make sure you're joining up tonight after the game, about 25 minutes or so after it closes. But, guys, DG today, it's going to be interesting. If he can make those progressions like he did last week, if he can continue to go over the middle of the field, I think that's a big deal here. I look for Austin Stogner to have obviously a lot more active a game tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think he will, but I also think DG is just going to spread it around a lot, just like he did last week. I mean, he did that last week, and I think he'll do the same thing again. I'm interested, like Jimmy said there too, the defense. To me, that's the key to this game, and that's the key to the whole season, in my opinion. Last year, even with DG struggling in some games or whatever, and they still were scoring a lot of points. So I think the whole key is defense for sure. And just like this comment here, sound defense, don't get too high or too low. That's right. OU by 3 TDs there. It's a good prediction. And you're right. You can't get too emotional, too high, too low. And like I said the other day on the video, I'm interested to see how OU reacts after they allowed touchdown this season. They haven't allowed one yet. Just got to be strong and bounce back for sure.
Another player going through warm-ups right now, Brendan Thompson. He did not go through warm-ups last week, hasn't played in an Oklahoma uniform yet. Again, can't really tell if that means he's going to play today, but he is going through warm-ups, which he was not last week. So good sign for that.
If they do use Thompson, I expect it to be a lot like they used Petaway last week with little flare routes out of the slot, or maybe on some sweep reverses or something. But I think Petaway's a guy tonight that's could be very active and get a lot of. He got 9 receptions last week. I expect him to be quick to the ball as far as get out of Gabriel's and get over to Petaway and see what he can do.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to be the leading receiver tonight, guys? I'm going to go with Andrew Anthony. I think he's going to have a big game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Good
Nick
point
Anderson's
about the
another guy and the heat. It was super hot last week. It's hot tonight, guys. That first half's going to be pretty warm. Second half should cool down a little, get under the lights. So,
hey, do you think Sawchuk gets a lot of run tonight? Do you think he gets a lot of playing time?
I do.
You do? Yeah.
I'll be interested to see.
You think they're still going to start Tawee? That's what I'm interested to see if he's going to run out there first or not.
I bet it'll be Major this week.
You don't think Barnes or Sawchuk will be out there first? I kind of think it'll be Barnes or Sawchuk.
Any of them at this point would make sense.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I'm really excited to see Sawchuk, though.
Same. And really, the main thing with the offense is you just can't turn the ball over. You can't have fumbles. You can't have interceptions. I mean, you got to be solid in that area. These are the games that maybe can get too close for comfort. And a lot of people like Cliff Walker here, 54-13. You probably heard last night on the video, the game day video, that we pretty much picked OU pretty heavy. And so I think jumping up on them early is a big deal here. Getting early, first drive, going down there and scoring and holding them right off the bat would be massive early on.
Yeah, you got to start quick. That's kind of if you look at last year, I mean, the first few games, it was the same thing. It was very quick, but then they kind of went in these. I mean, we all remember the whole arguments we had on podcasts about Levy's offense and the whole 3 and out when they would go quick and it would just give them no breather at all. Obviously, we haven't seen that yet this year, but it'd be interesting to see when you get in a game if they – because I thought Levy did a great job last week of kind of the tempo being fast sometimes and sometimes slowing it down. I really thought he mixed it up well, which I'd love to see. I didn't feel like at any time they were really rushing to get a play off. So I'd like to see him do that again for sure. Hey, what about Jackson Arnold? Are we going to see him today before mop-up duty at all?
I am not going to be shocked if a package comes in there maybe inside the red zone. I think you got to be careful a little bit with that, especially if DG's going great and has confidence. I actually agree with Cliff Walker. We're either going to get a special teams TD or a pick six. I talked about a pick six yesterday, but I think that it's going to be interesting how deep, you mentioned Jackson Arnold, how deep into the depth is BV and staff going to go tonight? Played a whole lot of guys last year, over 80-something players, I think, played last week, played a snap. I think it's going to be interesting to see how many guys get out there and get run tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned the pick six. You know, the other day on our podcast, we didn't quite get to our hot takes, bold takes, but my bold take was going to be a pick six from Peyton Bowen, true freshman. I kind of feel like he's going to get a pick six today.
Yeah, and as far as Jackson Arnold, look, if DG's as good as he was last week, they're not gonna mess with his confidence. But the package that Arnold ran last week, where he's just basically getting downhill on the QB keeper, pretty impressive, and that's something that I think Levy would not hesitate to bring out.
One thing I'm interested in seeing with Jaden Gibson. Jaden Gibson had a great game last week. We all know it. 2 great catches in traffic, made plays, just a playmaker. how does he catapult off that performance? Is he going to make more improvements? Is he going to have another great game, or is he going to kind of go back? And I'm hoping he just keeps this trending up, because those plays are massive plays when you get in tight games. Those plays that you can make one-on-one with a guy. And, you think back to some receivers that OU's had. I specifically think, Mims made some great catches. I mean, he was really good. But in traffic-wise, like CeeDee Lamb was really good in traffic. You can go back Sterling Shepard. I mean, you can – but I'm trying to think of a guy that was just with his height, that was just a go up and get the ball guy. And, if you remember, I mean, Kenny Stills wasn't as tall, but he was definitely a guy down the field that made plays.
I think there's two things that really intrigue me tonight. It's the third down conversions. Can OU continue to be really good in third down? That's something that they really did not do well last year. So I'm looking for that. And honestly, I'm also looking – the O-line was great last week, but OU never really pulled off a run over 20 yards. So I think seeing if they can get a run over 20 yards and maybe pop a big run from one of the running backs would be something that would be intriguing, something I'm looking forward to seeing, because we really didn't see that last week, even though the O-line played outstanding.
Yeah, O-line played great last week. And they're just – if you listen to them all after practices and when they're talking to them on Mondays and Tuesdays, they just seem extremely confident. Rame especially. Rame seems really, really confident this year, and I actually think he may have been the best lineman in the first week. I mean, he was really good. So hopefully he can continue it, and that starting five can keep just growing together as a unit. I think they will. But it'd be interesting to see what they do. This would be a lot tougher test. I mean, SMU's defensive front seven is good. I mean, we had the play-by-play guy on. He talked about how good they were. Ryan Leaf echoed that yesterday, talking about their front seven's legit. They got ex-OU player Corey Roberson on there that had a pick six the first week. They got some dudes on that defensive line. Miami transfers are there, so they're going to rotate a bunch in, and they're going to be a good test, I think, for this O-line.
Yeah, and if you're just joining us, couple of injury updates that we know of. Brennan Thompson is going through warm-ups. Drake Stoops is going through warm-ups. So that's something just to keep an eye on if those guys are going to get in there tonight. It'd be exciting to see that.
Two more names going through warm-ups, Desan McCullough and Robert Spears-Jennings.
Yeah, so, McCullough was in the boot. We heard he was not in the boot heading into the stadium. So that's exciting because they could use him on the edge, pass rushing with Preston Stone, the quarterback. And, Jay, you mentioned the D-line of SMU. OU's offensive line, as great as they were last week, they will be tested today. So that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, and that's great about Robert Spears-Jennings. He's, Venables has talked about him, saying he's getting closer and closer to being out there. And, hey, he didn't play a whole lot last year, but when he did play, he made some hits. And I think he's the guy that's going to be in on that rotation. They played quite a bit back there last week. They played Lawrence. They played Pearson back there, Bowman. I mean, they played a bunch. I might be missing somebody. But yeah, that'll be great to have Jennings back. I think he's a guy that can make plays for sure. I'm also interested to see Gentry Williams and Woody Washington. Tonight is going to be a key matchup for them. SMU spreads the ball. They like to throw it down the field. They're going to get tested tonight. If they're playing that man coverage or whatever, they're going to get tested. So I'm interested to see how they perform tonight. We're going to know a lot more about this team come 9:00 tonight than we knew last season after week 2, because they had Kent State in week 2 last season. You just couldn't tell a whole lot. You really couldn't tell a whole lot.
They struggled
after the Nebraska game, but tonight we're going to know a little bit because SMU is good, and then their conference is good too. Tulane's up by I think they were at 20-7 on Ole Miss earlier. So
yeah, and last year against Kent State, OU struggled in the half, couldn't put up points on offense in that game even. So yeah, I like what Baker says here about if OUD can hold SMU under 24 points, that's a huge step forward. I agree, and I promise you that's what BV and staff think too. Let's hold them under 20. With the depth that OU has on defense, you got to think they're gonna bring a lot more pressure this week. They're gonna bring a lot more scheme wise. offer some different kinds of blitz packages and bring the backers some and maybe even the safety some. They did not really show any of that last week, but I think they're going to get after Preston Stone a little bit. I look to see a minimum of 3 sacks today from this defensive unit, and hopefully that leads to some picks, some interceptions, some turnovers on that end.
Hey, Brody, have you heard anything on R. Mason Thomas? Is he in warm-ups? Is he playing? I mean, Venables said on his press conference Tuesday that he was going to be available, so I'm assuming he's going to be out there.
I haven't seen anything on that, but I'd imagine he's for sure going to be out there.
Yeah, that's what Venables. I mean, he pretty much said he'd be playing or be available. So that'll be a big step. That'll be huge for the defense too, because he's a pure pass rusher, pin your ears back type guy and go. So I agree with you, Jeremy. It's going to be big on the defensive line, getting to Stone early, because Stone is very young and very inexperienced in games. I think he's played 3 total games. So you got to – Venables usually – I don't want to say eats those guys up, but he usually is pretty good at when it's youngster quarterbacks are playing against him. If you look at his history, he's going to dial up some pressure.
Hey, Stone's not a runner, correct?
I mean,
he can scramble a little bit. I think
he's mobile.
The run early, make them one-dimensional. The more OU can make them one-dimensional, like you said, pin their ears back. I think guys like Trace Ford, Rondell Bothroyd, guys that have been around the game for multiple years are going to be huge impact players tonight. Trace Ford and Rondell Bothroyd coming off there, getting some sacks, putting some pressure on Stone early.
Yeah, and it's a great night for football. I'll tell you that. I mean, the wind, there's not much wind. I mean, it's a little warm, but I don't think it's that hot out there compared to what it could be. So should be a great night for football. You're going to be under the lights second half probably. I mean, you got a lot of recruits there on unofficial visits. Should be a great atmosphere. Just looking forward to a fun night. Hopefully OU plays very well, comes out with a few touchdown win is what I'm hoping. So.
Yeah, I mean, we know SMU can put up points. I don't think you want to get in a scoring fest. I know OU can score with the best of them, but OU's defense has to make a statement, as Baker said and some other guys on here. This is a statement game for the defense. OU's offense, I think, is going to score plenty of points in this game to win the game. Can't turn the ball over, and you got to make a statement on defense.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know what? One thing we didn't really talk about last week because they had one punt, right? And I will say it was a great punt. I'm interested to see what happens when he gets a few of those opportunities, Plaster. And then also, the extra points to me last week, they weren't the prettiest of extra points. I mean, Schmidt kicked last year. He had a pretty good year, but I'm still interested to see as far as field goal unit and as far as punting, just how they perform in a little bit more important game, But I will say this, it would not shock me to have another special teams touchdown. I think somebody commented that earlier. It would not shock me at all to either have a return or a block for a touchdown. I think they focus so much, and you've heard the reports, they focus so much on special teams at practice that it's gonna be a difference maker.
Per George Stoya on Twitter, McCullough is out there, but he's not doing much stretching. It doesn't look like he's going to be a go tonight. That's just when you're in the boot most of the week, and it's SMU, which not a knock on SMU, but this isn't Texas. I think McCullough is going to get held out tonight.
So with that, Brody, with McCullough, if he does not play, you have Harrington that's going to get a lot of the run, but they like to move that cheetah position around and put different guys. Do you see Pearson going in there quite a bit? Do you see Bowen?
No,
do you see Peyton Bowen?
It'll be Harrington about 90% of the time, but when they go to their little 3-3-5 look, that's when you'll see Peyton Bowen come in Peyton Bowen and Harrington.
Which they may have to use the 3-3-5 quite a bit against SMU. We'll see. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how they run that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, new to the room, what I missed? I mean, one thing we talked about early on was Drake Stoops is going through warm-ups, seems to be doing a lot out there, as does Brennan Thompson, a receiver that has not seen the field yet because of injury reasons, and very quick, very speedster. Will be interesting to see if he plays, maybe even on special teams. Not sure, about that. But as Brody just said, Deshaun McCullough, according to George Stoya, doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot out there on the field with warmups. We know he walked in without a boot on today into their stadium, but so that'll be something to keep an eye on. Harrington, guys, Harrington has we've talked about him for years, and he's got his chance. He played well last week, and he's got his chance right now to make a statement at that cheetah position.
Yeah. If anybody watched the OU DNA on Wednesday, that was kind of a story about him on there. And just seems like a dude that everybody loves on the team and that is just a hard worker, like you said. And he's going to make the most of this opportunity. I think he is. I mean, he's always been talented. He's super athletic. He's what we've heard a lot this offseason is, and especially from McCullough's said it himself, is that Harrington's extremely helpful to McCullough on coverage because Harrington is really good at coverage, which we're going to need that tonight because SMU throws it around. That cheetah position has to be really good coverage. And that's where I think Deshaun White last year was just not at the level. I mean,
neither was
Deshaun White did decent at cheetah. I mean, I'll say that, but he was not the cheetah that Venables is used to having. And his coverage he's not fast enough and stuff to be in coverage. I just don't think.
I give it 2 drives until we see Gavin Sawchuk.
I think he may be in the first drive. I think they may let him on the first drive get out there. He didn't play last week. We saw what he could do in the Cheez-It Bowl. He's different. He's a different type of back. I think it's someone you could see very early on, but I have not heard how early he is going to play. But, Jay, you bring up a couple of interesting points here. Coverage of our linebackers, I think, is going to be they have a tight end that's really good. Russell Merton, really good. Can our linebackers cover? And I think they can. Canick showed the ability last week on that one when he kind of faked the blitz and retreated back and almost got his hand up on the ball. I think you're going to see a deflection or two from him, but Agwebu could not. David Agwebu could not cover at that position. I think we're going to see these guys much better in that. And then you also got guys like Kip Lewis, Lewis Carter, who can definitely use their speed and coverage.
Yeah, talking earlier, you were talking about how many guys will OU play. They played 87 last week. They may play a lot again. I don't know. I think it does depend a little bit on the score and stuff, but I don't know because I think they are that much better depth-wise that Venables doesn't mind putting second and third stringers in there because he doesn't think it's a huge drop-off, and he wants to keep guys fresh. And talking to Ryan Leaf the other day, he talked about this game, and he was talking about how it's going to be hard for him as a color analyst to get a whole lot of word in because these teams both go fast. So if it's really fast on both sides, I think you will see a lot of guys in because it's not going to work if OU does what they had to do last year at linebacker. Stutzman cannot play 100 plays. I mean, that's just so much on the linebacker. And he was doing that a lot last year between him and Agwebu. And so you got to have the depth. You preach competitive depth all off season. Venables has preached it. So I think he's going to follow through, and I think you're going to see a lot of competitive depth. I think you're going to see a lot of players play today.
Hey, Brody, any other injury updates about going through warm-ups right now?
Hunter just said Stoops is warming up right now.
Yeah, Stoops
on the field. Yeah.
Just from what it looks like on the in the booth broadcast, it does look like Stoops is going to play just based on how much warm-ups he's going through. Deshaun McCullough likely looks like he will not play. Maybe Stoops will. I'd still list Stoops as, I'd say, probable for Drake Stoops playing. McCullough looks like it's a doubtful situation. And then as far as other players out, not really any that we didn't expect heading into the game.
How close is Sexton?
Jacob Sexton's going through warm-ups. Not sure if he'll play, but he's going through warm-ups.
I know the word is he's been getting closer and closer. Obviously, he's probably not a guy that would play much this early on anyway. But
unless an injury goes down, he's probably the next guy up.
Another guy that didn't play last week was Vickers. Seatbelt was held out last week.
Wagner.
He had a great camp too. So
Josiah Wagner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jalen Rowe got in last week. I think they're going to go pretty consistently with Woody and Gentry on the corners. I do think the middle of the field is probably the danger zone if you're OU defense. That's where they're going to try to get you at the middle of the field.
Yeah, but if you I rewatched this game last week a couple times, and there were some plays that like Peyton Bowen made, and I think same with Bowman, but just the angles they took on some of the short passes, that if you watched the same thing last year, Broyles just took a wrong angle and a big play. And I think it goes unnoticed. I mean, Bowen last week, a couple of plays where he made great hits too. He's got a knack for, and he's smart. I mean, you hear Venables and them talking about him in the offseason, they threw him at 5 different positions, and he just learned it and moved forward. I think he's going to be – I think as the season progresses, Peyton Bowen's going to get more and more action. Same with PJ Adebawore. I think as the season progresses, these true freshmen that are 5 stars, you're going to see them on the field more and more.
PJ Adebawore is one to me that he could very easily get on there very early. Cliff talks about the running game being established. I agree. The interesting thing on the running game, Cliff, is who's it going to be? Is it going to be by committee again, or are they going to go with maybe two of the main dogs here? But like I said earlier, OU never broke off a big one last week. They kind of went in small chunks. Running game was still great last week, but I'm ready to see one make a house call. You know what I mean? Let's make a house call early from.
I don't think it was great last week at all. I think it was just kind of okay, maybe good, but it wasn't great last week. And even without the long runs, they didn't have enough chunk plays. I'm not talking 40-yard runs. I'm talking 7-8 yard runs. Most of them were probably, I don't know, 3-4 yards max. I mean, yeah. So it was a lot of smaller things. So it was pretty basic, but still basic against Arkansas State. I'd like to see a little bit better run blocking for sure.
How many takeaways for the Sooners? I'm going to say, I said on the pregame game day video we did that they would get a pick 6. I'm going to go with the pick 6, and then I'm going to go with Trace Ford or Bothroyd causing a fumble on the quarterback with pressure. So I'm going to go with 2 takeaways.
I'm going to go with 2 as well, and I think both interceptions. I just think Venables is going to dial up pressure on Stone, and Preston Stone is just – he's a great quarterback as far as his talent level, highly 4-star guy. I just don't think he's played enough big-time college football in an atmosphere like this in the Palace, and I think we'll get a couple of interceptions from OU tonight for sure. What about you? How many of you guys think? Watching the video, put your comments in there. What do you think on turnovers tonight?
Yeah, we're here a couple of minutes probably from closing out this live. We said we'd go to about 4:30. We know all you fans want to get your food ready, get everything ready. It's on ESPN Plus tonight. Not sure why. I just don't understand that. But ESPN Plus tonight. Ryan Leaf's the color analyst. If you have time, check out that video before the game. He'll give you some great insight on what he's expecting for tonight. But after this game ends, 25 minutes or so after the conclusion of this game, we will be on here again with our full team discussing what we saw in tonight's game and hopefully covering a blowout win from the Sooners and some excitement as they move to the road game next week at Tulsa. So, yeah, make sure if you're not part of what's going on at the Sooner Surge, though, you join up. Click that link that Brody put in the chat here. And before we close, let's get a score prediction.
I'm trying to remember what I said on our podcast. I think I did 59-13 or something. Something wild like that. I mean, it may get up there, but I always pick as a crimson colored glasses a little bit, but I do think I think OU's going to put up a bunch of points, and we'll see if the defense can hold them to 13 or less. To me, if they hold them to 13 or under, I think it's a great performance from the defense.
Yeah, I look for this to be a pretty easy win going away. I think Jackson Arnold's going to get some run again, and I think the OU defense is going to be a statement game. So make sure you guys are part of the Sooner Surge. After the game, 25 minutes again, like I said earlier, join up for the YouTube Live, and we'll take all your comments, and we'll chat till midnight, whatever we need to do. stay with you guys, Sooner fans. Appreciate it. Till next time, guys. Boomer.
Boomer.